Hi, everyone. This is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U, and today we're going to be going over 10 high-concept horror movies. Now, let me just let you know just a little bit about my experience in this area because it made a significant difference for me. At one point, I had a call from one of the big horror producers. His name was Sean Cunningham, and you guys may know him. He was the original producer and director of Friday the 13th. And he's had a tremendous amount of success, all because of one great idea that he then turned into a pretty good script and ultimately into a franchise that made a tremendous amount of money. Anyway, he called me up and he said, Hal, I need someone who's both a horror writer and can write something very, very quickly. And he needed somebody who could listen to his ideas and could brainstorm and create and could write horror at a professional level. I brought him some writers. He ended up signing one of them and making the deal with them. And she went on to write that particular horror movie for him. In the midst of that, I had the chance to interact with some of the horror greats and became obsessed with this. But let me tell you, part of this became this one question, which is, how do you create a concept that in and of itself will increase your chance of making a deal or getting a movie made or even having a franchise by 30 times, right? And that's, a lot of people think if I can just create something scary, that's enough. Or, hey, I wrote a cool scary scene. And it's like, okay, good, great. You can write scary scenes. But can you create something that people in this industry want to put a lot of money behind and a lot of promotion, and they're going to go out of their way to make you a huge success? So that's really what today is about. Let me just kind of walk you through this. Here's what we're going to do today. First, we're going to talk about how to create a high concept horror, right? It's like a lot of times people think log lines equals high concept. That's actually not accurate. You'll see in just a moment. Then we'll do our countdown of 10 high concept horror movies, and I'll take you from the 10th to the 1st, focusing primarily on how much money they made. Now, I know there's lots and lots of other ways to do this, but every time I say to somebody, what's your favorite horror movie? A lot of times people have different horror movies that they think are the top one. I'm just going to stay with money for the moment, because ultimately that's our hope for you, that you end up having real true success from this. And then we'll talk about the upcoming class, Creating Terrifying Horror Scripts, which is the best horror class that I know of. And again, it came from our experience of working with horror producers, horror directors, and horror writers. So let's jump into it. First thing, this is what you want to be thinking. What is a high concept? And again, you know, this is a marketing term, and some people, you know, think that really when you're writing, you should only think about the writing. That's true if all you're trying to do is get better at writing. But if what you want is to end up with, you know, something that changes your life, something that makes you a success in this industry, something that has tremendous success with audiences and that kind of thing, you'll want to think about high concept. So let me just walk you through the different, or here, let's do this first. Here's what a high concept basically is. It's a major hook that we haven't seen before, right? So on some of the concepts I'm going to show you, I'll actually kind of show you the difference between how it would be if it was just something somebody made without thinking about marketing the script versus if it was something someone made making sure that they had a high concept. But let's go a step further. The value. And by the way, if you're somebody who's never thought about this before, or was told by some other screenwriting teacher or somebody else not to ever think about marketing having to do with your writing. For today, at least today, just let go of that. and give yourself the freedom to think outside that box, because it could make all the difference for you. The value of a high concept: it instantly attracts an audience. There are some of the movies that I'm about to talk about today where if they didn't have a major hook, I don't think we would have ever heard of them. And so it's very, very important. It attracts an audience. It can be sold to the public. This is a high concept, can be sold to the public in a 30-second TV spot or just a single sentence on social media, and it is much easier to go viral, right? And that's a big part of why this whole thing matters. When you get to producers and you start pitching your project, they're listening to see if this is something that can sell, right? Producers, remember, their whole purpose is business. That's it. That's what they do. And their game is the business game. So if you handle something that they instantly go, oh my God, I can sell that across multiple networks. We could sell that in so many different ways. The moment that they have that experience, they're going to want to work with you, right? And we have had that happen with a bunch of our writers where they brought in scripts that were well written and got almost no attention at all. They came in with a high concept and suddenly had people wanting to meet with them, wanting to talk with them, wanting to talk about the possibility of working together. All kinds of things happened because of this single sentence. Now, let me show you the difference between these two. A log line, and this is just one version of a log line. There's a bunch of different versions, but they all kind of fit in the same categories. You're basically telling the story. A main character has this goal, but this conflict occurs by this opposition, right? Or it could have twist in it. It could have like 4 or 5 different categories of information that you put in it. Whatever it is, it's still, you're giving the information about the story. So let me give you an example. This is from The Purge. If I would have heard the pitch this way, I would have never taken another step. The top home security salesperson, there's our main character, has his home broken in by a gang, there's the conflict, who is intent on killing everyone on the night of the purge. Now, that's a log line. And you can beef it up a little bit in a couple of ways, but pretty much that's, any version of a log line you tell is going to have the same kind of impact. People are going to listen to the story and they're going to go, huh, okay, yeah, I could see how that could work. Let's look at it from a different perspective. This is a high concept. This is the big hook of the story that is unique in a significant way. And remember, right now, I'm not talking with you about what the scary scenes are like, or what the monster looks like, or what the horror is, or any of those other kinds of things. We're talking about, you have one sentence to pitch this to a producer. So this is how I heard the pitch the very first time I heard it. And I wasn't involved in this project in any way. I'm talking about The Purge. But I heard the pitch before the movie ever got made. And here's the way we heard it. What if for 12 hours, anyone could commit any crime, including murder, and get away with it? Now, the moment I heard that, I imagined something, and about 4 seconds later, I said, that's a franchise, right? That's a horror franchise. This could start small and escalate pretty fast. And it's like, oh my God. And by the way, what would that be like? That would mean your neighbors could end up being murderers, and mean anybody that you know could have that moment, right? It's like this opens and unlocks so much without telling you the story. I could write 10 different versions of this. I'm sure you could too. So this, a high concept, does a whole different thing for the producer, for the director, for anyone who you're trying to get to read your script, and especially for marketing to audiences. That's why this is so important. Now, with that, we're going to do our countdown here. And pardon my voice. Sorry, I'll be okay here. With the countdown, I'm going to give you the high concept of each one of these. I'm going to give you the budget, then the box office, and if it became a franchise, I will give you the franchise box office. And again, we're counting down from the lowest, and these are all high concepts. There have been other horror movies that have had success. I'm not trying to put anything down here, but these are all high concepts, and they are all, we start with the lowest and we're going to work up to the highest. So here we go. There's a movie called It Follows. And if you saw it, you know a couple of things. It was about a supernatural force that acts as a sexually transmitted disease, following and killing unless the victim passes it on to their next lover. Now, there's a couple of things about this pitch right here. First, notice we didn't say, Darla has a problem. Her boyfriend just gave her an STD, but it's not the kind you normally think, right? We didn't do that kind of pitch. We just went straight to this. So if you take out this sexually transmitted disease part and you say, okay, this is about a supernatural force that follows and kills people. How many movies have had that? How many old movies from the 50s have had that, right? It's like, it makes no difference at all, but they found something that gave this a hook, that took this outside the box, something we hadn't seen before, and then they honored it in the story. This one, the budget was $1 million. It was a low budget movie. The box office was $21 million. Again, if you would have taken that one thing out, I don't think this thing ever gets past. I don't think it gets to the theaters unless the writer or the producer are paying for it. So this stuff's important. Number 9, a movie called Countdown, and this one, you download the app that predicts the moment you die, and no matter what you do, it's going to happen, right? At the time, apps were a big thing. They were huge at that moment. Everybody was trying to create an app. So that was important. And then you've got an app on your phone that everybody is carrying around that's predicting the moment you're going to die. Now, it has a countdown, obviously, and that's going to make it much more interesting. It's going to create a lot of suspense. It's going to have us wonder what's happening, all that kind of thing. So I think from a concept or from a story perspective, it's great. But if you take the app out that predicts the moment you die, you got nothing, right? So it's important to find these parts that make them high concepts. This one, budget was $6 million. Box office, $48 million. Pretty big success there. Number 8, Escape Room. And this one, basically, the concept is 6 strangers are invited to compete in a series of escape rooms. One will win $1 million, the rest will die, right? So it's like, again, it's got this whole thing of this is the major competition, but it's the escape rooms that make it incredibly interesting. These rooms are specifically designed to kill people. The budget, $9 million. The box office was 155 million. So none of these went to franchise. It's possible maybe this one could. And there actually, if there was a possible deal on It Follows, but none of these went to franchise so far. Now we go to the ones that did. Happy Death Day. My daughter came to me and she said, Dad, we have to go see this movie. And I was like, okay, what movie? And she said the title, Happy Death Day. And I was like, oh my God, is this a horror movie? And the answer was yes. A college student relives the day of her murder over and over unless or until she discovers her killer's identity. It's Groundhog Day for horror. And by the way, that's how my daughter got me in there. She said, it's Groundhog Day for horror. And I don't know if they had that on the poster or something, or if she just knows enough about me and, you know, knows how to pitch because they've listened to all of our stuff. This one, the budget was $5 million. Fits into a pretty standard horror budget. Box office $125 million. And since then, it's come out with a second movie. It's made $190 million, which earned the 7th place in our countdown here. The next one, Don't Breathe. This one was, I think it was pretty interesting from one perspective. 3 robbers break into a blind man's house, thinking it's going to be easy, but he turns out to be a very adept killer. This is Don't Breathe, the title, is because if he hears you, you know, again, he can find you and kill you. And having it be a blind man who had been at war before, right? So knows what he's doing, knows how to deal with it. They had no idea what they were getting into. Take this out, the blind man, and if you just said 3 robbers break into a house, but the homeowner kills them, everybody would say, okay, drama. They shouldn't have done that. Very different. Budget, 10 million. Box office, 157 million. And the franchise already is up to 210 million. Number 5, The Ring. Anyone who watches a mysterious video dies in 7 days. Let's pause for a second. Again, I want you to get really clear on this. If they had said, one lady asked her friend to watch this video because they've heard that if you watch it, you could die in 7 days. And the friend now goes through those 7 days, right? It's a log line. I don't think that has half the power of telling us just this single line, right? What this does is this causes us to start thinking. It causes us to start imagining that. What would those 7 days be like for somebody? And by the way, where did that video come from? How does it happen that it causes that, right? So it creates questions. It also has you be able to imagine a story pretty quickly. 48 million was the budget. The box office, 249 million. Well done. And now number 4, A Nightmare on Elm Street. You guys probably saw this a long, long time ago. The spirit of a serial killer kills people in their dreams. If they die in their dreams, they die in real life, right? So again, we don't know who the protagonist is. We don't know the story. We don't know a whole bunch of things. We just know this one part, but that's enough. At that time, nobody had a serial killer who knew how to kill people in their dreams. The budget was 2 million. Well done. Box office, 25 million. And then it went on to be a $472 million franchise. Give me just a moment here. $472 million off of that concept. Now, by the way, what causes a franchise? There's a bunch of things that cause a franchise, but one of the big keys is that you're starting with a high concept that can play out over multiple movies. So that's pretty important. Number 3, The Purge. And I already told you this one, basically. So you know it. What if for a 12-hour period, anyone could commit any crime, including murder, and get away with it? When you come in with a pitch like this, people are going to sit up and listen. Now, by the way, if you came in and said, oh, I'm going to do a new movie, and it's what if for 3 hours people could commit any crime? That's not a high concept. It's just another version of this. You need to find something unique, something outside the box, something that goes beyond anything we've seen before. This one, the budget was $3 million. Box office was $89 million. And since then, it's made $532 million as a franchise. So, number 2, A Quiet Place. I hope you saw this movie. I'm sure you did. Really well written, very interesting. But here's the concept. How does a young family survive when the monster kills the moment they make a sound, especially when the woman is about to have a baby, right? Now, if I was going to say this, I would probably just focus on this question, you know, and you could do it the other way. You could say, if it hears you, it kills you, right? That's the tagline that went with the movie poster. But still, we have a high concept here that ended up costing about $17 million to make. We brought in a couple of stars, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, which is why it cost $17 million. It probably could have been made without stars for, maybe $3 million plus or minus. So it made back $340 million. Pretty amazing. And it created a franchise that's already made $640 million. So these high concepts make a difference. And finally, number 1, Saw. Now, what I mainly want to say about Saw is what's coming up here very soon is the 10th Saw coming up here very quickly. And that it's incredible if you think about it. These guys came from Australia. Nobody down there was willing to make their movie. They had this great idea. And the concept basically was people wake up trapped in a morbid puzzle that requires a gruesome decision, either kill someone else or die a horrible death, right? And sometimes it was a different kind of gruesome decision, but that's where we were at, right? So the puzzle, you take out the puzzle and take out the gruesome decision and have people wake up in a place where they're going to be killed. And it's like, so what? But this made a huge difference. Let's see how much. The budget was $1 million. The original movie made $103 million back. It made 100 times its money. And Saw, so far as a franchise, has made over $1 billion and counting. Now, again, what this all comes down to is creating and making really smart decisions and creating high concepts. So let's talk about some of those decisions. Please know up front, horror audiences have become really smart. You know, I was talking with Sean Cunningham about this. Would Friday the 13th have survived the way he made that movie originally? And he said, I think it would, but we would have to do a lot of upgrades because horror audiences have become really smart. Now, why it would survive was it had a great title and it had a great concept. So great horror isn't about just writing scary moments. It's about creating an audience experience. And if you there's really two kinds of people who go to see horror. There's the ones who are diehard horror fans who have been in every horror movie that's ever come out, who what they love, they absolutely love, is being scared to death. And then there's the ones who get hooked because of the high concept, and they show up and they're watching. Either one of those, they're still all much smarter than they were 20 some odd years ago. So you've got to be writing at a higher level, and you need to be creating an audience experience that this audience keeps engaged. They keep wanting to watch this, and they go tell everybody else to watch it. What high concept does is it attracts that audience, right? And it especially attracts the people who are on the edge, the ones who are willing to go see horror, but that's not their favorite genre kind of thing. So the high concept becomes very, very important because it can multiply the audience times 5 or 10 or 100. And that's why we've been talking about this. Now, that's an important and key strategy for your success, but I'll tell you there are 20 other high-level strategies that can make your horror scripts significantly more successful. And let me just ask you this question. Have you ever wondered what might be possible for you if you truly mastered horror skills, right? Would you end up being like one of those people who came from nowhere, who won a contest and then got their movie made, or got optioned or sold their script, or even had any kind of success like some of the people that wrote these particular movies? Now, there's nobody that can promise that, but if you really did create something and then use high-level horror skills to take it to a professional level, you never know what's possible for you. So stay with me for a moment. Let me walk you through this class that's coming up called Creating Terrifying Horror Scripts. This particular program I created after working again with one of the top horror people in the world, one of the top horror directors and producers, and then working with about 30 horror writers who had had their movies produced and had had some kind of success. Let me just walk you through it real fast. Because learning these skills, and as you're looking at this, just take a look and see which of these skills would you like to become better at, and which of these skills would you need to learn for the first time. So the first thing, of course, is creating a concept, and we've been talking about concept today, and honoring the conventions of horror. So we have the exact conventions that came from all of those interviews I did with horror people, horror producers, horror writers, horror directors, and audiences are expecting those conventions. So you want to make sure that you're writing within those. Second, you need a monster that evokes primal fears. And many times just creating an amazing monster could be enough to sell your script. So it is worth really thinking about and looking at it from a professional level. There are survivors and victims, but the next thing that's going to come up is building your plot. And we don't build our plot like most people. We actually do it through 4 different tracks. So essentially a track means you're going to look at one way of thinking, and then you're going to run it all the way across the story and see how you can create. So it starts, of course, with your horror situation tracks, right? What kind of horror situations are you going to put these characters in? Then, and you lay that out all the way across your story. Then, what is the character death track? When do you kill off certain characters and why? Now, the how will come up later on, but here's what we found. A lot of people think, well, you know what, you can just do it in any kind of random order. If you want to create the best experience for your audience, there are certain ways you set these up. There are certain reasons you make these decisions. Why do you have this character killed in the first scene instead of in the last scene, right? And it makes a big difference if you know what you're doing. Then there's the monster reveal track. When are you going to reveal what about the monster, right? In some movies, we see the monster early on. In some, we just see the tail, or we see the shadow, or something like that. And then there's little pieces along the way until finally we see the full out monster. There's a whole logic to how you make those decisions to have your movie be the most compelling it can be. Then it's about the character journey track. And I've had a lot of people actually say to me, horror characters don't have journeys. And it's like, no, that's not true. That is not true at all. In fact, if you look at Scream, where we have Drew Barrymore killed off in the very first scene, she actually has a journey. She's the first person killed in the first scene, but she has a journey that has an impact on the audience and causes them to have an emotional experience. This stuff is really, really important. Now, what we do at the end of this is you put together all of these tracks, and that becomes your plot. Now what you have is a full horror movie. You don't have a drama with horror elements. You really do have a horror movie that will attract horror audiences. Then it's about the emotions. And you'll see what we did was we listed out the 12 emotions, or the 10 actually, 10 emotions of horror, the ones that are the most important. And I give you something that took us 2 months with a development team to create. We give you a single sentence explanation of each of these and an exact how-to in one sentence. So if you look, for instance, at anguish, I'll give you a definition of anguish so you really do understand it, because this is an incredibly important emotion in horror movies. And if you understand it, really truly understand it, it's much easier for you to know how to build it in. But then we will tell you, here's the exact formula for creating anguish in any scene. Same with suspense, same with dread, same with shock, same with panic, same with hysteria. By the time you're done with just these 3 lessons, you will understand more than 98% of the writers who are bringing horror scripts in right now about how to create emotion with your audience. And it makes a huge difference. Then we'll give you 20 scares and creepy moments. These are things you can build into any scene. The reason we have 20 is so you don't kind of pigeonhole yourself and keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. That becomes predictable. And then it's about scary as hell horror scenes. And this is a model that we created from looking at the very best horror scenes that have ever been out there. It is specifically designed to catch an audience off guard, to move them through an emotional sequence that ramps them from feeling comfortable to, by the end of it, they're in hysteria. It is about the audience, not the characters. The characters will go through whatever they go through, but we want to cause the audience to have an emotional experience. And then at that point, then it's about turning up the heat, and then how to keep it low budget and marketable if you choose to do that. Now, really, truly, by the time you go through this particular program and you go through each of these lessons, this is a 30-day program, you will know more about horror than really 95% of the people coming in. And you very likely, if you follow everything we have here, you will actually have a script that is better than 97, 98% of them. That's what's truly possible in this situation. Let me give you a special, make it easy for you. The normal price on this class is $199. It is a 30-day long class. It begins on October 2nd. So that means that by Halloween, you will have your horror script written and you'll have something that you're incredibly proud of. Here's the special, and this is for the first 20 people. For the first 20 people, you can get in at $99. This will save you $100. After that, by the way, once we hit 20, when it clicks over to 21, number 21 will get in, I think at $149. and then it'll go up to the full price of $199. So if what you want to do is to write something that really does have a chance of success, this class will benefit you immensely. I promise you, it will make the kind of difference that you'll look back and you'll say, when it comes to writing horror, everything was either before this class or after this class. And everything after this class was at a professional level. So let me just ask you one last question. What if you took this class and as a result of it, doubled the quality of the writing you did when it came to horror scripts? What if you were able to create something that was twice as good as what you were capable at the present moment? What kind of a difference would that make for you as a writer? I hope you'll join us. All you got to do is go to this link, bit.ly, bit.ly/horror sign up. Just write that down, put it in your browser where you normally put a web address, and click return. Again, it's bit.ly, bit.ly/horror sign up. There's no spaces, no caps. With that, I wish you the absolute best on your horror writing. And I promise you, if you join us, you will stand out from all the other people that are coming in these doors nowadays. So you guys have a great day. Thanks for being with me. This is Hal Crosman with Screenwriting U, wishing you the very best in your writing. Bye-bye, everyone.